How's it going, everybody? I hope you are all doing well. This is the Ben Burnside Show, coming at you from where I do the show. Um, no, I'm coming at you from where I live in Fresno. Um, I haven't done a few shows in a while, so I'm really looking forward to this one. Um, yeah, I don't know. I guess I've just been busy the last couple days, hanging out with friends and stuff. So pretty rare to do during times of COVID. So I'm very thankful for that. Um, and with me not doing a lot of shows, I got a lot of MMA stuff to catch up on. Do I? And this should be an interesting show, even though this card is probably a card that is probably less um, highlighted with big fighters in it, with more famous fighters. But they tried to make it more of a stacked card than it is currently. But there's been a lot of cancellations for different reasons, regular fighter reasons like missed weight or medical suspension, injuries or something, or um, or with the main event of this card, with what it was supposed to be, it can also be an example of the times for cards of fights being canceled for reasons of fighters testing positive for COVID. The original event for this fight card, which is UFC on ESPN Plus 31, so the 31st UFC card on ESPN Plus. It was originally supposed to be Holly Holm, the former UFC bantamweight champion who knocked out Ronda Rousey. She was supposed to fight an upcoming contender from Mexico named Irene Aldana, but Aldana got tested positive for the coronavirus, so the fight was canceled. And the new main event is still a pretty good main event. It's between two middleweights at 185. Derrick Brunson will be fighting the undefeated 22-year-old Edmen Shabazyan out of California, I believe, California. So this should be an awesome fight. There were other cancellations. Ray Borg, I just learned that Ray Borg canceled himself out of his fight for undisclosed reasons. So that's unfortunate. Ray Borg is a fighter that has had a lot of bad luck through the last couple of years. He has a baby that has, I believe, some brain issues, and the baby had to go through brain surgery. Like, it's just really really intense stuff. So I wish him the best there. I think there was another canceled fight just now in the undercard. Eric Spicely, who's another middleweight at 185 pounds, he was taken out of his fight against the Brazilian Marcus Perez, and they were going to bring in another fighter to fight Perez, but I guess that fight got canceled for whatever reason. They just couldn't get to it in time. The fight came in a few hours of notice, so that's what happened. So yeah, it should be an interesting card, I should say, to say the least. A lot's going on in MMA, a lot of MMA news. I'm going to go through this card though, because this is a timely show with the card happening tomorrow. So let's go through the card. I'm going to go from the main event to the curtain jerker of the card. Yeah, I'm going to try to do this show quickly because I got to be somewhere in almost an hour and a half. So the first fight we got is Derrick Brunson versus Edmen Shabazyan. This is the middleweight fight. Edmen's a monster. That guy is championship level material already. He is 22 years old. He's a freak. Derrick is a main eventer. This will be his fourth main event. He's always been ranked number 8 And I believe the rankings for these two, let me pull that up. I forgot to pull that up. I believe the rankings for these two are around the number 8 and number 10 slot in the very competitive UFC middleweight division. Going through it here. So going to the middleweights. Israel Adesanya, obviously the champion, and with the number 1 contender being Robert Whittaker, who just won his main event fight last week against Darren Till. Paulo Costa is number 2. He's going to be fighting Israel Adesanya next for the title next month. So that'll be the main event of UFC, what is it, like 253 or something? I don't know, but something like that. Let's see, 250. No, it's 253. It's 253. Jared Cannonier is number 3, highly touted guy. Robert Whittaker and Israel Adesanya already fought for the title. That's where Israel won the title. So, that in case you were wondering, and the Robert Whittaker just fought, so it makes sense that the rankings would change. Number 4 is Jack Hermanson, who just submitted Kelvin Gastelum. Number 5 is Yoel Romero, who lost to Israel in February for the title. Number 6 is Darren Till, who just lost to Whittaker. 7 is Gastelum, just lost to Hermanson. Brunson is at number 8, and Shebazyan is at number 9. So the winner of this arguably will probably face Kelvin or Darren. I would go, either one of those fights would be crazy. But this is a tough fight. Let's look at their records as of late. I'm going to go to SureDog.com to figure out their records, because they're the most reliable in terms of looking at their overall records. Derrick is, let's look at just the UFC. Well, let's look at his whole career. And he fought in Strikeforce, won all of his fights. Almost all of his fights in Strikeforce. He lost to Jacare by KO. Won all his fights before he entered Strikeforce. He fought Kendall Grove before the UFC, lost to him by split decision. He beat the legendary Chris Lieben by decision. Beat Brian Houston. I don't know who that is. He lost to that was his second UFC fight. His debut was against Chris Lieben, Jesus, in the UFC. That's pretty crazy. Yoel, he lost to Yoel. That was his first UFC loss. I remember that. That was kind of a very highly athletic fight. Kind of a crazy looking fight, too. He beat Lorenz Larkin by decision. Then he beat Ed Herman by TKO, beat Sam Alvey by TKO, knocked out Roan Carnero, TKO'd Uriah Hall. That was a bit of a controversial stoppage. I remember that one. And they didn't like each other for that one. Lost to Robert Whittaker by TKO, kind of a wild main event. I think that was his first main event too. And what happened was Derrick kind of blew his gas lid in terms of cardio by outpunching himself early in the fight, and Robert Whittaker took advantage of that and then knocked him out. I think that's what happened. Next fight, he fought the legendary Anderson Silva, and Silva won by a controversial decision win. Thought that kind of sucked. It didn't sound at all like Anderson won. I didn't see the fight, but it didn't sound like he won. After that though, Derrick, he got back on the horse. He knocked out 2 guys after that. Lost again by KO to Jacare. I think that was another main event. And he got TKO'd by Israel Adesanya after that. But after 2 again, he beat Elias Theodorou. which is an impressive win. Then he beat Ian Heinisch by decision, another impressive, not depressive, win. Edmen Shabazyan, though, this guy could really contend for the title at some point. I really think that. I think this guy he's undefeated, and he's looked impressive with everybody he's fought. Was undefeated even in his amateur fight before entering the UFC. He made his emergence with Dana White's Contender Series, and he TKO'd Antonio Jones. Then in November 2018, he beat Darren Stewart by split decision. Then he TKO'd Charles Byrd a few months later in March. Then in July of last year, he submitted Jack Marshman. I saw that fight. That was an impressive win. And then when his most impressive win to date was his next fight, he TKO'd Brad Tavares in very impressive fashion in UFC in Madison Square Garden in the card where Jorge Masvidal fought Nate Diaz. I don't know, man. This is a step up in competition. There's definitely an age difference here. Brunson is 36. And Shebazyan is only 22. Seems highly confident. I gotta go Shebazyan. My gut is just saying Edmen Shabazyan right now. Even though the competition between the two fighters isn't the same, neither is the miles. The mileage is clearly different, with Brunson having more mileage, just like he has more experience. I just want to clarify too, and again, I've said this in a number of podcasts. I am just an MMA fan. I'm not an expert. I'm an observant MMA fan. And I don't, I've done enough to where I think I can. My observations aren't bad with what I've seen in fights and my guesses in fights aren't too bad. Usually when I lose, it has to do with not surprise knockouts, but more I just don't know. I don't know some information about some of these newer fighters that come in, like they're a world champion at something, and then I end up picking against them because I don't know that fact, and then boom, they use that fact to have them win their debut fight in dominant fashion, where it's like, come on, I didn't know that. Although I did pick Khamzat Chimaev to win his debut fight. So, I don't know if I did or not. I might have not done that. Who knows? But yeah, I'm gonna pick Shebazyan. I think Brunson has had a lot more miles, and Shebazyan is a very skilled 22-year-old, unusually skilled for his age. So I just think he's the real deal. So I'm going to take him. I could be wrong. This could be Brunson's time to shine, where he wins a main event and really surprises people. But I don't think that's going to be the case here. That's just my gut. So for the main event in this card, which is all set in stone, they both made weight, I'm going to pick Edmen Shabazyan to move up the very competitive middleweight division. The new co-main event, with now the Holly Holm fight being canceled, and the previous co-main event moving up, will be Joanne Calderwood versus Jennifer Maia. Very interesting how this fight, I should say, went about. Let's first look at the rankings, though, in the women's flyweight division. Jennifer Maia is number 6 in the division, and Calderwood is number 3. And this goes into the interesting part. This Joanne, who I'm a big fan of, she was in line to fight Valentina Shevchenko next for the women's flyweight title. The number two, the Caitlin Chachagyan, she lost to Valentina, and Cynthia Calvillo, I mean, she just beat Jessica Ai, but to get that ranking, but that was literally her first flyweight fight. It just seemed more sensical in terms of timing that Joanne would go before Cynthia, but Cynthia's well in line to fight to have a title shot next if the cards are right. Especially now since Joanne just booked herself for this fight. Joanne took a risk here in fighting the number 6th ranked Jennifer Maia. And, I don't know much about Jennifer. I don't know if I've even seen her fight. So let's take a look at both of these fighters. Joanne, first off, is a very game fighter. Before she even turned pro, Joanne fought UFC fighters like Emily Kagan. Oh, this was in the Ultimate Fighter. She fought Emily Kagan, and she lost to Rose Namajunas. So that's a hell of a list right there already. She was undefeated before entering Invicta, and she won a few fights there in Invicta as well. No, she was undefeated, and then she entered the Ultimate Fighter, it looks like. Yeah, that's what happened. And after that, she got signed into the Ultimate Fighter, winning her first fight in a UFC card, beating Seo Hee Ham in the Ultimate Fighter season finale. She lost to Marina Moroz in her next fight by armbar, but then she beat Courtney Casey and Valerie Letourneau, very impressive wins. Valerie she beat by TKO. She lost to Jessica, no shame there. Jessica is a scary person at 115. She then lost to Cynthia, and people thought that Joanne won that fight, including her. So very competitive fight at least. Kalindra Faria and Ariana Lipsky she fought next, beat them. Then she lost to Caitlin Chachagyan by unanimous decision. Then she beat Andrea Lee by split decision. So Jennifer Maia, let's look at her thing. Before we get to Jennifer, Joanne addressed her risk into fighting Jennifer, and pretty much sacrificing her guaranteed title shot. Because if she loses, she's not going to be next to fight Valentina, for sure. So this is according to MMA Junkie. Credit goes to them. They interviewed her. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll read the quote. Let's see. But she's well aware of the risk of fighting Jennifer Maia. She said, "For me, we were training for Valentina, and then it got put back, then it got put back again, and I guess the frustration in me, I was just not getting anything out," Calderwood told reporters, including MMA Junkie, during Thursday's UFC on ESPN Plus 31 Virtual Media Day. "I was enjoying training, and I was getting better, but I was itching to get back in and let that killer instinct out of me. I feel like I just wanted to get in there and fight and had a lot of energy I wanted to get out. And also with the crazy times that are going on right now, I was just like, I want to go out there. I have the opportunity to do it. I'm healthy and I don't have any injuries. So that also plays on a lot of fighters' minds when you're doing this for a job and it's full contact. I could get injured and that could put me out for a few months. So that was also in the back of my mind." Okay. Yeah, I think I was gonna criticize Joanne a little bit for taking a risk of this fight. You know, it's hard to relate. Again, I'm just an MMA fan to what she feels about this. So, um, you know, I get it, and I get it in a way, as much as I can, because you know, I just think at a certain point something has to happen, you know, in life, right? With some certain things that happen in life, being stagnant and monotonous, it's not good for a lot of people in ways because life is about action. You know, at the end of the day, if there's no action going on, you know, if there's no action going on, then you're at risk for maybe, who knows, getting stale, being unsure of yourself more and more because stuff is not happening. The stuff that you want to get done is not getting done. So you could second guess yourself more. I guess that makes sense. I guess that makes sense when you look at it from that way. I'm trying to relate the best way I can, even though I'm not a fighter, but that makes a lot of sense. Um, when I think about it like that, this COVID thing is really, you know, it's I get it. I get it. You know, I criticized Dana White hard at the beginning of this COVID thing because I thought him immediately starting up his promotion in March was really reckless of him to do, especially when we didn't know about the virus at all at that point. He figured it out, and now I commend him hard, and I want him to do these shows now. And so the game has changed dramatically and drastically in that way. And you know, but I get this feeling of anxiety that people might have for how they're being pent up basically in their house with this COVID thing. I don't think the world, especially the United States, I get the perspective that we're not prepared for something like a pandemic to happen. And you know, we should maybe as a whole we could have had some kind of pandemic task force or something to where, you know, once a pandemic happens, we can go to that unit and say, hey, what do we do? And so it's like, okay, just do this stuff. And you know, I don't feel like we have that a whole lot. But my point is, well, that could have done a lot to handle this kind of anxiety that I feel like I'm getting out of that quote. And it's not just Joanne; it's everybody. It's everybody in the world that's kind of dealing with this in their own way. So, you know, I think it's a very interesting quote. Credit goes to MMA Junkie on that. They're probably the best news source out there. So, but yeah, this is a good lesson, I think, for everyone, especially governments, in how to deal with a pandemic in the future. Because, you know, you're seeing a lot of anxiety like this, and there's not a lot of answers of how to address it, because it's not practical to always leave your house during a pandemic. It's just not. So, it's an unfortunate situation. You know, I totally get why Joanne's doing it. Seems like Joanne has the advantage in terms of the stylistic part of the fight. I think Jennifer even admitted to that in an article on MMA Junkie, or at least she hasn't prepared for her. But let's look at Jennifer's record, overall MMA record on Sherdog. It has she was undefeated before getting a draw to a fellow UFC fighter, Kalindra Faria. She then got her first loss to Vanessa Porto. I don't know who that is. got another win, got another loss. She beat Jessica Andrade. Wow, in 2012. That's impressive. That's impressive. She then beat Zola Frosto. I feel like I've heard that name before. Zola Frosto in Invicta. That's impressive. She looks like this Jennifer girl's been around for a while. She's 31 years old. Let's see. She lost to Leslie Smith. No shame there in Invicta. Got 2 more wins after that. Lost to Deanna Bennett. I've heard of her too. She lost. She got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wins after that. One of them being to Roxanne Modafferi, which is impressive. Then she made her UFC debut. She fought Liz Carmouche in UFC Fight Night last year in July. Or no, 2 years ago in July. Lost by unanimous decision. But then she beat Alexis Davis, and then beat Roxanne Modafferi again. And then she fought Caitlin Chikagian. Hard to say Caitlin's last name. Caitlin Chikagian in probably her biggest fight to date in November in the Masvidal versus Diaz card again, where she lost by decision. And that's where Caitlin got her title shot. So Jennifer is an all-around fighter, and this is definitely a risky fight. Joanne is 33. Pretty much age won't be a factor, looks like here. It's a smaller cage. Neither of them really seem to be knockout artists. I don't know. I just find Joanne to... Maybe she's a more skilled fighter. I don't know. It's really up in the air with these two. This is a competitive fight. Joanne seems to be a little more of a finisher, according to her record. I don't know. I just think Joanne's... with Jennifer saying that she might not be the best matchup for her, or I felt a hint of that. I'm going to go Joanne. I'm just going to go with the safe bet. I don't know a whole lot about Jennifer Maia, but this could definitely be a risky fight for sure. But I will go Jennifer. Joanne wins. I mean, she should retain her future title shot for sure. Cynthia Calvillo, though, she definitely has an argument to fight next because she beat Joanne, according to the judges. I didn't see the fight, though, so I don't know if she won. Really, I don't know if I would have thought she won or not. But yeah, there you go. Next fight down on the card is the third biggest fight. Vicente Luque against Randy Brown. This is probably the fight I might be looking forward to the most. Vicente Luque against Randy Brown. Particularly if because of Vicente Luque, the silent assassin. He's 28 still. Jesus Christ. This guy should be higher probably on the card, or on the, on the pecking order of things. I see why that's the case, though, of why he's not. But let's go through his record here and see how far he has gone. And, former Ultimate Fighter alum, I saw the entire season. It's very impressive how good he's gotten since then. Won his first 2 pro fights, but then lost his next fight, then got a draw, then lost another fight. Won 2 of his next fight against, including one against Thiago Santos. That's crazy. He beat Thiago by TKO. Whoa. Wow. That's weird. Is it another Thiago? Seems like there's a difference in size there, but that's Wow, okay. He lost to Alfredo Souza, then won his next two fights, then lost to Carlos Alandre Pereira, then won his next, lost to Michael, like a contender of a fighter, but then after that he went on a tear. He beat Haider Hassan, beat Alvaro Herrera by submission, knocked out Hector Urbina, then knocked out Bilal Muhammad, UFC 205. And then in UFC Fight Night, about a few months later, he lost to Leon Edwards. Edwards is one of the top 5 fighters in the welterweight division. This is a welterweight fight, by the way, 170 pounds. Then he beat Nico Price by submission, knocked out Chad Lepre, knocked out Jalen Turner, TKO'd Brian Barberena, TKO'd Derek Krantz, beat Mike Perry by split decision. Only split decision, wow. But then lost to Stephen Thompson. No shame there. That was in the Masvidal versus Diaz card as well. A lot of Masvidal Diaz card on this card. I find that odd. In May 9th, when the UFC went back on during the pandemic, he beat Nico Price again by doctor stoppage in UFC 249, Ferguson versus Gaethje. He has gone through the ringer and beaten all the bottom guys, and he's fighting some elite dudes now. And he's going up the welterweight rankings, and he's just falling short. I think the Vicente Luque Stephen Thompson fight was a competitive fight, to my understanding, so that's unfortunate. Let's go to Randy Brown now. 12-3. Huge dude for welterweight. He's 6'3". From Jamaica. He's 30 years old, so he's in his prime as well. Man, he is so fucking big for this weight class. Rather impressive in his amateur career. Had 2 losses though out of 6. But then he beat 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He won his first 7 fights as a pro, including he beat a guy named Rocky Edwards. Is that Leon Edwards? No, it's a different guy. Oh, that's weird. But yeah, he beat that guy, Rocky Edwards, in his next fight. In his UFC debut, he beat a guy named Matt Dwyer by decision. Lost to Michael Graves. There's that name again. By submission in 2016. Damn, Randy Brown's been around the UFC for 4 years already. That's crazy. Then he submitted Eric Montano, TKO'd Brian Camozzi, lost a decision against Bilal Muhammad, no shame there. Beat Mickey Gall by decision. I saw that fight. That was a win for him. That was a win for Randy. Then lost to Nico Price by KO punches. That was crazy how he lost that fight. That was weird. But then he TKO'd Brian Barberena, submitted Warley Alves, who's a high-level jiu-jitsu guy, to my understanding, by triangle choke. Very impressive win. This is another dangerous fight situation, kind of like the Joanne Calderwood thing, because Randy isn't ranked, and Vicente won his last fight, so he should go up in the rankings. But that's not the case here. He's fighting a guy who's not even ranked. And Vicente is what's his rank? He's number 11 in the rankings. Conveniently, when Vicente is fighting this week, he went ahead of Nate Diaz in the rankings. I think that is kind of funny. Who gives a shit if he's ranked number 11 or 12? How big of a deal is that going to be? And oh yeah, why is Nate Diaz ranked? But anyway, that is what I have to say. You know, I'm gonna go Vincente on this one. I just think he's too impressive of a fighter. Randy Brown, his last win was super impressive, but I don't know. I just think Vincente will find a way to win. This guy has been a winner overall in his run as a welterweight in the UFC. And even with Stephen Thompson, he was ultra competitive in that fight, and I think it was a 2-1 round-based win for Thompson. So it was a close fight, and I think he got knocked out by Leon Edwards. So can't say much there. But did he get knocked out? But overall, I'm going to go with Luque on this win. That's my answer. And no, he lost to him by decision too. So this guy's the real deal, and I think he might even have a chip on his shoulder. Who knows? With with something like this here, where he's fighting an unranked fighter. Next fight down on the card. This card has 11 fights, so that's the average for a UFC card. We will see a fight between Lando Venata and Bobby Green. Bobby Green's last UFC fight was 41 days ago. That is impressive that he is bouncing back so quickly. And I think I know why, after going through the media on MMA Junkie. He already fought Lando, and I think he beat him. So let's go through their records and see. Lando, entering his pro, as a pro, 1, 2, 3. He was 8-0 coming in as a pro, and that's where after that he made his UFC debut on short notice. He fought Tony Ferguson. That was a crazy fight. I remember that fight like it was yesterday. Tony was beginning to be on a tear, and John McCarthy reffed that fight. He caught Tony. I thought he was going to finish him, but Tony survived. Tony caught him in the second round. Tony caught him in a submission and ended up submitting Lando for his first loss. So very impressive. After that, Lando fought John McDessie. Maybe the most impressive knockout of his career. He knocked him out by a spinning wheel kick. Next 4 fights were a bit rough for Lando. He lost to David Taymor by decision. Got a draw. Okay, that's what happened. He fought Bobby Green to a draw. And Herb Dean ref for that fight. And so yeah, Bobby Green. I could see where there's beef there, or a feeling of unsettled business there. The fight went to a draw. So that makes sense. So this is more risky than I thought for Bobby Green to come in here after just having a 3-round hard-fought fight against a legend. But Lando, after that draw, he lost to Drakkar Klose. No shame there. Drakkar's a tough guy. Then there was a majority draw decision against Matt Favola. Ugh, rocky stuff with Lando Venata in this card. After that, he fought a guy named Marcos Mariano and beat him by a Kimura submission. But then lost to Mark Jacasey by unanimous decision. But then after that, he beat Yancy Medeiros, a very impressive fighter as well, by unanimous decision. Let's go to Bobby Green. Bobby, this could be Bobby's run. Bobby is 33. Just to let you know, Lando is 28. He's still young. So Bobby, 33 is not old. But Bobby, let's take a look at his career, which is much longer than Lando's. Won 8 of his 9 fights before going into affliction as a pro. That's where he lost to Joe Lozon's brother, Dan Lozon, in 2009. After that, he won his next 3 fights in a row. Then he fought a guy named David Mitchell. I feel like I've heard that name before, in 2009. Lost by submission in a toe hold. Then won his next 3 fights again, including a win against Darren Cruikshank, former UFC alumni. But then lost to Tim Means via TKO. Sounds like a verbal submission kind of deal. Retirement, I don't know what that is. Won his next fight, lost his next fight after that, only by split decision though. Then it looks like he went on a tear. He was in Strikeforce in the UFC in this run, where he won his next 8 fights in a row. He got wins over James Terry, Jacob Volkman, I've heard of, James Krause, Pat Healy, Josh Thompson. That's an impressive list of guys. But then he lost his next 3 in a row, and after that he had a draw. That's the draw with Lando Veneta. He lost to Edson Barboza, Dustin Poirier. I saw that fight. That was a clean knockout. Then he lost to Rashid Magomedov by split decision. Yeah. No shame with those fights. Those are all tough fights. Then he beat Eric Koch. Then lost to Drakkar Klose, and then Francisco Trinaldo. But then he beat Clay Guida. So I'm going to go with Lando, though. Lando seems like it's more of his time, actually, when looking at this card. And Bobby Green just fought. He just fought 41 days ago. So I don't know. I think that with some fights, short notice fights are great, some are not. But I feel like the fight with Clay Guida was very hard fought, and it was very debatable if he won or not. That was a close fight. So it was very hard fought, though, is my point. And just for that, I'm going to pick Lando to etch out a win here. But we'll see. It really could go either way with that fight. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Next fight down on the card is Kevin Holland versus Trevin Giles. This is the final fight in the main card of the show. This is on 185 pounds. Previous fight, by the way, was for lightweight, 155 pounds. Trevin is only 27, and I believe he was a football athlete, if I'm not mistaken. So this should be interesting. Let's go through, get right to it with Trevin. Undefeated as an amateur, then went, he went 11-0 in his first 11 fights as a pro. That's impressive. Including a win against Ryan Spann in Lion Fights. He beat James Boknovic, heard that name too. That was his UFC debut. He won by KO. And then he beat Antonio Braga Neto. That was the Fresno card. That was here in town, where Cub Swanson fought Brian Ortega. That was in 2017. Lost his next 2 fights, though. Lost to Zach Cummings by guillotine and Gerald Mershart by guillotine. So 2 ground fighters he lost to. So we know where his weakness is. Then he beat James Krause. That's an impressive win by split decision. All right, let's go to Kevin Holland. Not much news on these guys, except they're both from Texas. So they've been eyeballing to fight each other for quite a while, going back to the minor leagues, it sounds like. Kevin Holland is an entertaining talker when he fights. Just says great, outlandish things, and he's a funny guy to listen to in there. Very outspoken. Undefeated. He was undefeated as an amateur. By the way, he's 27, so he's Giles' age. went 4-0 in his first run as a pro, but then lost his next two, again, including one to Rafael Lovato Jr., who I believe was the Bellator 185-pound champion. So that's interesting. Then he won his next 5 fights in a row, including a win against Jeff Neal. But it sounds like Kevin's a little bigger than Jeff, so maybe that had something to do with it. Jeff's an upcoming contender in the welterweight division. Then he lost to Curtis Melinder in a main event minor lion fight. Then he won his next 3 in a row before fighting in Dana White's Contender Series and making his UFC debut. He beat Will Santiago Jr., but Dana White wasn't very impressed by him, so he didn't bring Kevin in. He didn't have Kevin earn a contract that night. Didn't matter though. Kevin won, and so he was already on the UFC's radar at that point. So eventually he was called up on short notice. I think it was short notice to fight Thiago Santos. Santos was on a tear at that point in the middleweight division, and he fought. He lost. Holland lost to Santos, but it was only by decision. And Dana White was impressed with him that night. I remember that, so that was pretty cool to see. After that, Holland beat John Phillips. That's the guy who just lost to Kazmat Kimeyev brutally a few days, a little more than a week ago now. Then he beat Gerald Meerschaert. That's impressive. He beat Gerald Meerschaert by split decision. Beat Alessio Di Chirico by decision. And then he lost to Brendan Allen, by submission. But then he beat Anthony Hernandez in his last fight. That was Overeem versus Harris. So he's coming back only after a little bit more than a 2-month layoff. And in his last fight, he got a TKO win. So pretty impressive there. This will be interesting. I don't really know. Let's look at Giles' record again. The list of fighters he's fought. He's fought tough guys too. I'm gonna go with Kevin Holland. There's something seems to be more potential with him since I don't know. He's just beaten. He beat Gerald Meerschaert when Giles lost to him. But I don't know. I really think this is going to be a tough fight. If Kevin Holland takes him to the ground, I mean, that could be what decides the fight here. And Kevin Holland has submitted a UFC fighter, so he kind of knows what he's doing on the ground. Maybe a little more than Giles. But that, who knows, that could solve the fight. Yeah, my gut's saying to go with Holland, so I'll go with him. Let's see here. So now we're going to the preliminary card. There's 6 fights on this part of the card. The feature prelim of the prelims will be the veteran Frankie Saenz, who is the oldest fighter on this card at 39 years old. He will be fighting Jonathan Martinez. Martinez missed weight on this for this show. He just missed weight today. He was 140 pounds instead of the bantamweight weight limit of 135 pounds. That's a pretty big weight loss. Technically, to be clear, it was 4.5 pounds he was off by. But that's still quite a bit. There doesn't seem to be any bad blood from what I saw. They did like a handshake hug thing. So no bad blood from Saenz. Why should there be? Honestly, well, I don't know. It could benefit Martinez. You never know with these missed weight things. It could be added energy. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's lost energy. from a bad weight cut or something. I think, I don't know. Let's look at the record here. Saenz is getting up there, man. He's 35, or 39, I should say. Yeah, but that's the story of this fight, is that he missed, Martinez missed weight. Saenz has been fighting for quite a while. He's at least since 2009. So when he was 29, he got into this. Won his first 3 fights as a pro, but then lost his next 2. But then he went on a tear. Beat 6 guys in a row, including a win against Yuri Alcantara. But then lost his next 3, lost to Uriah Faber, Eddie Wineland, and Augusto Mendez. But then he beat Merab Dvalishvili, that's an impressive win right there. And then he beat Enrique Briones by decision. Lost to Marlon Vera in his last fight by TKO. Let's look at Martinez. You know what? I'm betting that the UFC is kind of wanting Martinez. They're looking for Martinez to win because this is a prelim fight. This is the feature prelim fight, so this will be a pretty covered fight, relatively. Martinez went 2-1. Martinez is 13 years younger. That's what I'm instantly noticing. He's 26 years old. Saenz is 39. Won his first 7 pro fights in a row before losing to Matt Schell in a disqualification. He lost. So Matt Schell didn't really knock him out or anything. He didn't beat him in a unanimous way, but yeah. Let's see. Martinez just got DQ'd. Then Martinez won his next couple fights, but then he lost to Andrei Sukumtov in the UFC. No, he's already fought in the UFC too. That's interesting. I don't even know who this guy is. But then he won his next 2 UFC fights. One against Luigi Burin and one against Ping-Yuan Liu. But then he lost to Andre Ewell by split decision. I don't know, man. This is tough. It's a tough go. I think Saenz will find a way to win. I really don't know much about these fighters, and that's the problem I always get at with these prelim fighters. I don't really know a whole lot about them. Martinez fights out of Factory X, excuse me. And Frankie Saenz fights out of Fight Ready in Scottsdale, Arizona. So, I don't know. I just think Saenz is more of a veteran here. He's fought more wars. He's fought more impressive fights. I think the UFC is looking for Martinez to win. That's why this is a touted fight. I don't see it happening, though. I think Saenz will win this fight. I think the veteran will find a way to win. So that's what I think will happen. So I will take Frankie Saenz to win this fight in a veteran way by decision. So that's what I think will happen. I'll take Saenz. The fight before that is the veteran, a huge veteran of the UFC, Ed Herman, taking on Gerald Meerschaert, who moved from 185 to now he's at 205. Excuse me, let me get a tissue real quick. Oh, man. Gotta love the Fresno dry air. Everything is just itchy and lovely this time of year. Well, let's go back to the card here. Ed Short Fuse Herman. He is now 39 years old, fighting out of Gracie Barra in Portland. Man, I hope he's keeping on the training and not looking. Don't look outside the window because Portland looks like a shit show. But let's go back to the fights before it gets politically crazy. Ed Short Fuse Herman, he's been around the game forever. I think he debuted in the Ultimate Fighter Season 3 with Michael Bisping, who's now retired. But let's go to this first. His first fight was in 2002. He's been around the game for a long time. He was 5-1 as an amateur, and then he appeared as a pro in 2003, won his first fight, beat the same guy twice in his first 2 wins as a pro, but lost his second pro fight. But then he went on a tear after his first loss. 2, 3, 4. Won his next 7 fights as a pro. Then he lost to Kazuo Misaki in his debut with Pancrase. But then he beat Brian Ebersol, who's the UFC veteran, by triangle choke. Lost then to Joe Dorkson by technical submission. Then won his next 4 fights in a row, including a win against Glover Teixeira. That's impressive. Then he lost actually to Kendall Grove. After his next few wins in a row, that's where he got the call into the Ultimate Fighter in 2006. Beat Rory Singer. Then he lost to Danny Abadi. Then he beat Danny Abadi. He made it to the finals of his tournament. I believe that was at light heavyweight or middleweight or something like that. Ended up losing to Kendall Grove in the Ultimate Fighter finale, but still had a shot to fight in the UFC after that. Lost to Jason McDonald, UFC Fight Night, Ortiz versus Shamrock 3. My God, this guy's been around forever. But after that, though, he won his next 3 fights in a row, including he got his win back against Joe Dorkson. But then he lost to Damian Maia, who was on a tear at that point. He lost to Alan Belcher. He got a unanimous decision win after those 2 losses to David Lazal Loizel. But then he lost again. He lost to Aaron Simpson by TKO. So we're all the way now into 2009. Didn't fight for the next almost 2 years. Then fought again in 2011. And he won his next 3 fights in a row, including a win against Kyle Noak by submission. Then he had a no contest against Jake Shields. Lost to Jacare by submission in 2013. Then beat Trevor Smith later on that year. Lost to Talis Latis in the same year by decision. Beat Rafael Natal by decision. Lost to Derrick Brunson by TKO. Beat Tim Bosch. Then he lost his next 3 fights in a row. Looks like around the Derrick Brunson fight, that's where he moved to light heavyweight. He lost to Nikita Krylov, CB Dalloway, and Jean Belante. And after that, he beat Patrick Cummings, and then he beat Kadis and Brigamov by unanimous decision. So Ed Herman's been around forever. Very impressive fighter. God damn, he's been around forever. if if Frankie isn't the oldest wasn't on this card, Ed Herman would be the oldest fighter probably on the card. But he's been in the game forever. He's a legend. That's for damn sure. And he was the hot prospect, I think, when the Ultimate Fighter was around. It wasn't Bisping. People looked highly on Bisping, but I feel like Ed Herman was more of the prospect at that time. So he's just an impressive guy. That's all I can really say. The next fight, his opponent though, is maybe just as experienced as Ed, if not more so. That'll be Gerald Meerschaert, who moved from 185 to 205, which is the story of this fight. I think Meerschaert has already had experience as a light heavyweight, though. So, or no, he hasn't. This is his first fight as a light heavyweight. Meerschaert won his debut as a pro, then lost his next one, then won two more. Made his debut in 2007, so he's been in the game for a long time too. He's 32 years old. After his second loss, he went on a little bit of a tear, won his next 5 fights in a row, but then lost his next two to Curtis Bailey and Kenny Robertson. Then went on an even bigger tear, won his next 7 in a row. Then he lost his next 3 out of 4 fights, with only one win. Then he won 4 in a row again, including to Eddie Luria in 2014. Lost to Sam Alvey after that, though, in a minor league card in May of 2014. But then I think he went on another tear, which eventually got him a call in the UFC. He won his next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fights, to where then he was called by the UFC. And then that's where he made his debut in 2016 in December. And he fought Joe Gigliotti, where he beat him by submission. Then he beat Ryan James by submission in February of that year. After that, he lost to Thiago Santos by TKO. I believe that's where Thiago was really getting good. Then he won 2 more fights after that, beat Eric Spicely, then Oscar Pichiota. Then lost to Jack Hermanson, no shame there. Lost to Kevin Holland in 2019, no shame there. Beat Trevin Giles by TKO, or technical submission, I should say. Lost to Eric Anders by split decision, beat Duran Wynn by submission, and then he lost to Ian Heinisch brutally, only not that long ago, by TKO. I don't know, this is an early return for Gerald. And I think, I don't know, Ed seems, I could definitely see Ed being very extra confident this time around here. I don't think that's going to fare well. I'm going to pick Ed Herman here. Gerald's more in his prime, but Ed, you know, I don't know. I don't. This doesn't look too good. This doesn't look good for Gerald. I'm going to pick Ed. We'll see how that goes, that short return back, because if I remember correctly, Ian Heinisch smashed his last opponent. So we'll see how this goes, though. Next fight was supposed to be Ray Borg against Joseph Maness, but that is not going to happen. Ray Borg got his, as I said earlier in the show, Ray Borg was canceled out of the fight. So Nate Maness will fight a guy named against Johnny Munoz. See if I can get anything on Johnny here. Both are making their UFC debut, by the looks of it. This is where the card gets kind of messy. A lot of cancellations happening here. Munoz. Johnny Munoz. Okay. Searching him right now. Nate Maness is another guy who's making his debut. So this card in particular is, this part of the card is kind of a shit show. There's a lot. I noticed there's a lot of debuts in this part. More of the curtain jerker fights. Let's skip down the card though. Marcus Perez was supposed to fight Eric Spicely, but something happened with Eric. I don't know what the reason is just yet, but they were trying to get another fight. I noticed with Marcus Perez. I forgot the guy's name, Charles Optimera or something like that. His first name was Charles, but the fight got canceled. That fight, the new fighter only got a few hours notice, so nothing to be upset about there. So that fight is not happening at 185 pounds. Joseph Nathan Maness. Here's one of the fighters from the previous fight I was just talking about. Maness, this fight will be at featherweight. Supposed to be against Munoz, Johnny Munoz Jr. Oh, I see. Is this the fight? No, wait a minute. This is confusing as shit. Let's see. Okay, Nate Maness gets Johnny Munoz. I see what's going on. I saw these two in the face-off. It was probably the most intense face-off of all the face-offs of the card. It wasn't a very exciting face-off for this card. Not very exciting at all, quite frankly. The Dana White answering questions for this show after the weigh-ins and the weigh-ins face-off was more entertaining than this by far. But Maness, he is 11. Not much to really say. I don't know these fighters, I don't think. Yeah, I don't know any of these people. Except maybe Kellen Van Camp, I feel like I've heard that name. He beat him by knockout his last fight. So Maness is 11-1. He's 29. He's in his prime. He has a fair amount of finishers for wins, but in the fight he lost, he got knocked out in. It should be noted, even though it was late in the fight, looks like. But this Maness seems like an impressive fighter. Let's go to Munoz, who's the very well, Munoz actually was the quiet one. Let's go back here. Munoz is undefeated at 10-0. No, this guy was definitely the outspoken one. He's from Norco, California. I don't know where that's at. Munoz is 27, also in his prime. Undefeated. I don't know any of the people he's fought. I don't know any of these people, but almost every fight he's won has been by a finish, mainly by submission. So he is the king of the cage veteran. We'll see how this goes. This should be interesting. I'll pick Munoz. He probably is more confident. I'll take him. I don't really know either fighter though, so we'll see how that goes. Next fight, the second fight of the night, will take place at featherweight. It will be Jamal Emmers, and he will be taking on, let's see here, try to get his name. Jamal Emmers versus Timur Vilayev. Jamal Emmers versus Timur Vilayev. Actually, no, it's not that guy anymore. What is happening? It was supposed to be a guy named Timur Vilayev, I guess. Ah, I see what's going on. Timur with Valiev withdrew along with Borg and Spicely. Okay, interesting. I didn't know that about Valiev. So 3 fighters withdrew on short notice. That's kind of hectic for the UFC. Even for UFC standards, that's like a bit like, oof. When you include the main event, and there was a cancellation of the Jennifer Maia fight before JoJo came in, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Man, that's a lot of changing going around, particularly at the beginning of the card. So yeah, that sucks. But Jamal gets a fight, and he's gonna fight a new guy named Vince Cachero. Jamal is 17-5. We'll start with him. This fight's taking place at the featherweight division. He was 4-0 as an amateur. Won his debut fight, then he lost his second one. Went on a tear though after that. Won his next 6 fights in a row. Then before he finally lost. Then won 2 more fights in a row before getting TKO'd. After that, he won his next 4 fights in a row before finally being invited to the Dana White Contender Series, where he lost to Julian Erosa via head kick. That's all right. He went back to the drawing board and won his next 4 fights in a row, where he's finally making a main card debut, or a UFC debut, I should say, against Giga Chikadze. He lost that fight via split decision. That was Adesanya versus Romero. So Jamal hasn't fought for a number of months. Hasn't fought for 4 months. He will be fighting Vince Cachero, who I believe is making a debut here. Let's see. He's only 7-2. He's 30. Jamal is 31. Okay. So, Cachero is 4-1. He's an amateur. Won his first 6 fights in a row, including a win against Nolan Hernandez. I feel like I've heard that name before. Lost his next 2 fights, then he won in a TKO win against Marvin Garcia. I'm going to go with Emmers, just based off the UFC experience, and the pre-fight jitters is out of the way. So just for that, I'm going to go with Emmers. He seems more ready, obviously, for this fight than Cachero. That's another factor. So just for those alone, I'm going to think Emmers has the advantage. I will go with him. I don't know much about these fighters. Same old story with the prelim fights, but we'll see how it goes. Final fight to talk about. It's the curtain jerker, the very first fight of the show. It will be Chris Gutierrez taking on Cody Durden. I think so, unless there's a fucking cancellation. Okay, no cancellation this time. That's good. Chris Gutierrez, El Guapo is his nickname. He is 29, coming out of Texas. A lot of fighters coming out of this Factory X camp from Texas. I'm noticing that. Or at least for this card. I've noticed at least 2. But I've heard Factory X before in another MMA-related thing. He will take on Cody Durden. Let's look at Gutierrez's record first. This fight, by the way, this fight will also be at featherweight. He was 1-1 as an amateur, won his first 2 fights in a row, then before finally getting a loss, and then getting a draw after that. After that, though, he went on a tear. He won his next 6 in a row against a couple wins against notable names like Aaron Phillips and that Timur Valiev guy. Lost by split decision. He then fought Valiev again in his very next fight and lost by unanimous decision. So there you go. It's interesting. Lost his next fight, but then won 3 fights in a row after that. Lost another fight. That was his UFC debut. Was this loss? It was to Raoni Barcelos, the Ultimate Fighter season 28 finale in November of 2018. This Gutierrez, though, is impressive. He's won his last 3 fights in a row after that in the UFC. He beat Ryan McDonald. Then he beat Geraldo de Freitas Jr. by split decision. Then he beat Vince Morales by TKO and leg kicks just this past May. That's very impressive stuff by this Gutierrez guy. He'll be fighting Cody Durden from American Top Team, but this is in Atlanta. He is 29. The Gutierrez is 29, so the same age. Durden entered in as a pro, won his first 4 fights, then finally lost to Jared Scoggins in 2017. Nothing to be ashamed of there. Scoggins is a very tough fighter. Then he lost to Ryan Hollis in his next fight. Then after that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, won his next 7 fights in a row in order to get to the UFC. So his last fight was a win against a guy named John Sweeney. And a big takeaway though, is this doesn't seem to be Durden's weight class. So curious about that. This fight is supposed to be is it at bantamweight? Is it at featherweight? I don't know. It's weird. Take a look here. It's supposed to be, no, at bantamweight. So it's going to be at Dirt. So Dirt, sounds like Gutierrez might be going down for this fight against Durden. I'm still going to go Gutierrez, even though that might be a loss of energy for him. Durden will be confident, but I just think Gutierrez has had very impressive wins. I don't know why he's going down if he fought. Let's look at his last few wins. Vince Morales fights 145. Let's see here. Okay, so for Gutierrez, 2 of his last 3 wins were against bantamweights. So it's not too familiar at all, really, or it's not too unfamiliar at all, really, for Chris. So therefore, I'm really going to go with Chris here for the win. Chris, he seems like a very impressive fighter, and if he wins 4 in a row, he could be a highly touted guy down in the future if he gets this win. So we'll see how this goes. Or a more featured guy. That's impressive, getting 3 wins in a row in the UFC. I don't care how. Getting 3 wins in a row in the UFC, ultra impressive. So should be interesting to watch for the first fight of the night. Maybe should be considered a higher level fight on this card. But with that being said, that is the fight. Those are all my predictions for this card. Looking forward to it big time. A lot to be said. A lot of action for this very exciting changing card here. I think that's this card has been it's going to be most known for all the changes that has happened with it, particularly at the top with Holly Holm and Irene Aldana not happening. But that's all right. It should be an awesome fight. Edmen Shabazyan versus Derrick Brunson versus Edmen Shabazyan. That's a main event caliber fight. To me, that's a main event caliber fight. And I'm looking forward to all these fights on the card, and they should be good. So tune in for those fights. Check your listings of what time they are. I don't know when. Oh, okay, I see them. The prelims will take place at 3 p.m. tomorrow on ESPN Plus. with the main card scheduled to take place around 6 p.m. on ESPN Plus. So and that's going to be at the UFC Apex facility in Las Vegas, Nevada. That's all. Those are all the cards, man. I will get going and get to work on sending this out. So like and subscribe this video. Check all the other videos that I have on my YouTube channel. Most of them are MMA. I'll try to sectionalize all the videos so you know which ones are MMA and which ones are other topics that you may not like. So I will work on that next. But tune in for future video content. A lot of UFC reviews coming up. And I am looking forward to seeing you later on my video channel. Looking forward to it. I love talking to you guys. All right, but until then, I will catch you on the Burnside. I'll see you later. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the fights.